Yeah.
I'm now in conversation with Charlie Reece. He's a local man, he's an entrepreneur, and he describes himself as a community catalyst. He's been responsible for many initiatives in our local community to do with heritage. He's got a background in and a business in electronics, and he's also, as I didn't know until I spoke to him minutes ago, got a degree in astrophysics. So pretty impressive, Charlie. So how on earth did you get involved in heritage projects?
I suppose because I grew up in Grafton Lodge, which was one of the hunting lodges that Henry VIII built, then I always had an interest in history. And there was a story about the Grey Lady, which of course was Elizabeth Woodville, allegedly being a ghost in the house. It's a fascinating house, and I lived there until I got married when I was about 25. So fascinating place to live, and I think that's where I get the history from.
Yeah, so that's a fantastic introduction to the area, and I can understand why you're so interested and passionate about it. Did you ever see the ghost?
No.
No.
Never did. But there was a ghost story that did happen in the Second World War, and I did know a man that spoke to the farm manager that said he remembers the appearance of horses and cavalry and stuff like that in about 1943, and it turned out to be 300 years since the skirmish in Grafton Regis. So there is evidence of a ghost story connected with the Civil War.
Okay, fascinating. And you lived in Grafton Regis till you were 35, yeah. You said, and then in 1997, you got approached to look at doing something for the millennium. What tell me about that?
Yeah, so lady said, what we're going to do for the millennium, and I said nothing. And she said, oh, come on, Charlie, we've got to do something. So I called a meeting. Very few people came, and we decided that we could possibly write a book about the history of Grafton, but we didn't have a committee to speak of, but we co-opted people like Keith Harry and Charles Fitzroy. Suddenly, with Heritage Lottery funding, we produced a hard copy book, which sold very well in advance. And the day was crowned by the visit of Prince Charles. When we launched the book in September the 5th, year 2000.
Wow, and that book really, Grafton Regis is really a remarkable village. You know, you could argue that it was the birthplace of the Tudor dynasty and also of the Church of England.
Yes.
But after the book, you were also instrumental in helping to set up the history walks. How did that happen?
Yes, I was approached by British Waterways if they would, could I organise a walk about the history of Grafton, and they obviously had to include a bit about the Grafton Canal, which is nearby, and they basically supplied me with money to treat everybody to a lunch in the pub, and we used to get about 20 or 30 people come. I probably did it for 2 or 3 years, but then quite happy to hand that over. And in fact, initially it was a lady called Sue Blake that took it over, and she added costumes, and Jean now sort of has taken over from Sue, and the costumes just bring the history alive. So I'm glad I started it, but it needed other people to take that project further.
Yes. And I think your description of yourself as a catalyst is very accurate, because you have a remarkable knack of persuading people to do things which are not for your personal good, but for the good of the community. And in Alderton, now you're heavily involved in the Arts Festival. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
Yes, the Art Festival about 4, maybe 5 years ago was in danger of collapsing because nobody wanted to chair it. They still had a good committee, and I think initially I said, yeah, I'll do it. And I don't think I realised what a great committee there was. And it's not that difficult a job when you've got such a fantastic committee. So we've kept it going. I think last year, the last 2 years, been record profits. We raised about £6,000 on one of those years. which is good, and it's great fun, but it's very hard work. But it does bring the village together.
And it's a great event, and unfortunately, it's likely to be a victim of coronavirus this year, sadly, because it is a very important event in the calendar, and it's raised a lot of money for a local church. Now, across the road from the church, there is a historical site called the Mount, which I believe you own. So, how did you come to own the Mount?
Well, I knew the previous owner, Derek Batten, very well. And I bumped into him in Toaster about 6 years ago. And he just said to me, he was on the Market Square, he said, Charlie, he said, do you want to buy my castle? And I said, yes. And it was just like that, literally like that. And I bought it off him. And the thing is, I don't own that castle, it owns me. The amount of work that's involved now in mowing, I've just got to get all the tree surgeons in now to repair, do some work on the trees, etc. The staircase that needs replacing, whatever. So there's a lot of work to do, but it's a fascinating site that goes back, to about 1100, built by William the Conqueror's half brother.
Yeah, and at the entrance to, when you go up the steps and you go down into the area below, you've got this plaque which tells a little bit about the history. It was a little village community in those early days, and I believe that it was visited by Tony Robinson and the Time team.
Yep.
What sort of conclusion did they reach?
They actually came to some wrong conclusions, would you believe? Because they came to the conclusion that there would have been wooden buildings there. But this is before I got involved in owning it. But Derek has since had 2 excavations, and they found stone buildings and glass, which is very different from wooden buildings. So much more prestigious buildings. But it sort of really died out around about the 1300, 1350 period. There's not much evidence of life going on after that. However, the site is 1,000 years old, and it's a ringwork castle, and the far side, it's about an 8-meter almost moat. It used to fill with water, but it doesn't now. 8 meters is huge. Absolutely
Yes.
huge.
So it was quite a substantial site in those days, and going back to the church itself has got a very important historical wooden effigy, and that goes back to those days as well.
That's right, and he was connected to the Mount, so he probably owned the Mount as well. So there's quite a lot of work we could be doing. In fact, different parts of the village are involved. So there's a lady called Margaret that's helping to look at getting the light restored. I've got a slightly different vision. I would love to see a replica of that light, because he was painted, I believe, white, red, and gold.
Right.
And of course, all that paint's come off now, and it's just wooden. But
Yes.
A replica standing above it or to the side of it, I don't know what that would cost to use, but that would bring the history alive.
Yes, yes. And when you think about it, it's remarkable that such a small area in a tiny part of England had so much involvement in English history. And that's without going the few miles over to Toaster and the Romans and Boadicea and all of that kind of history. So we are very blessed to have this on our doorstep. The observation I would make, though, I think, which I've been lucky enough to travel quite a lot in my life, and I've been to lots of different communities, and every community that I've ever visited has some historical context or some culture that is largely hidden. People in the community themselves, they don't know about that, and it takes people like yourself and Jean Glanville to bring all of that to life. And so this is why a webinar like we're having tomorrow is, I think, quite important to as a signpost to the things that can be done. And these kind of things will be very important when we come to the end of the COVID-19 crisis. So, Charlie, thank you very much for doing this interview today. I look forward to speaking to you again tomorrow, when we're going to have a virtual tour of our beautiful little corner of England. So until tomorrow, thanks very much, Charlie.